Welcome to Fireside Chats. Today we're talking about detachments, attachments, and a way forward to more freedom. So what's the difference between a truth and a conspiracy theory? 6 months. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Because even and people don't want to believe it, even though it's in front of their eyes, like what's going on. You just put it together. Is any of these things happening? Well, it appears so.
But
well, no, it's not happening. No way. It's like, well, it could be. Like, how do you know? Ultimately, you don't know who's pulling the strings.
Yeah.
Well, is it, the white hats? Is it who's actually in control? And is there a play going on? Is it a combination? Here, like the war's going on, that's on some level. And there's always something going on. There's something being pushed to the surface at all times, like negativity or darkness.
Yeah.
Or potential evil. And I don't condone anything like that, of course, but the stuff I went through, without that, I wouldn't have the understanding that I have now. So it's like, well, am I cursed? People have said to me, my friends have said to me, when they're struggling at times, like they've thought of my life and then they'll think their life isn't so bad. That's coming from a place of the outside appearances of what I go through and thinking, putting themselves in my shoes and how they'd handle it, but this is not factoring in how I handle things going through what's happening. So some people might think there's turmoil everywhere. My perception of what I often say is, okay, there's potential turmoil and at times turmoil around me, but I don't see myself as part of that turmoil.
Yeah.
So therefore I don't become that turmoil. And not to say that, I don't bobble up and down or get splashed a little bit by some of the waves around me, but I don't become the chaos. And this is the difference I feel on. It really comes down to perception. And I'm happy that people can, if they're struggling at any point, they can look at my life, and not to say I've had the worst life either, but with a lot of challenges. And if they can look at my life and think their life isn't so bad, then I'm happy that they can do that at least. That's something.
But a lot of that is just a change of focus, really, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, if you're focusing on the bad, it's going to look really, really bad. But if you focus on the good stuff in your life, and you see that all the time with people that are, live in the most poor conditions, and sometimes they're the ones that will give you the shirts off their back to help you out, even if they have nothing to give, because they know what it's like to suffer. But at the same token, that shirt's not what's going to make me happy. So you can have that shirt if that's what's going to help you.
I saw a brief video Eckhart Tolle was talking about being in the moment in the now moment. I'm not sure if that's exactly how he puts it, but that's basically how it is. Saying that people, a particular house in the spot in the particular place and have the chair, and then they'll be fulfilled. But then, then it's either too hot or something else. The mind will naturally find another obstacle or another thing that you must try and achieve to be in the moment. Where he says, and it's an absolutely valid point is being on, that if you can't be in the moment now, what makes you think you can be in the moment then?
Yeah.
So it is perception, 100%.
Change your focus.
Change your focus, change your life. With the challenges that I went through, is that sort of evil and even things being thrown at me or projected onto me, or when you go through chaos, there's chaotic people around, and not saying they're always chaotic, but there's chaos coming from a particular people or persons, or and then if someone's suffering, they'll tell their friends, so then the chaos seems to spread, and then it gets projected more so in a certain direction, which may be in the direction of myself. So I could think, oh, it's not fair, it's this, it's that. It's interesting because let's say curse, for example, and not that I condone any of these things, and some people may or may not believe them, but everything impacts everything. Let's say I go through intense suffering, and this doesn't condone cursing either. Intense suffering, made me search harder and harder for answers and understanding. So everything I went through, someone might think, well, this absolute chaos is potentially cursed, where it's short-tracked. And meanwhile, while I'm going through suffering in, this is probably 2006 to 2012, where things was an intense part of my life. So meanwhile, while these things are being pushed in my direction, right or wrong, I'm doing my own soul searching. And be careful what you ask for, and be careful with the duration that you're seeking it, because I was just doing, my mantras and doing my thing, saying, show me the answer, show me the truth, show me the truth. I want it now, I want it now, I want it now.
Mm.
I want it as soon as possible. So meanwhile, things are being projected at me to challenge my understanding on all levels. And I'm putting a lot of energy into trying to wake up, trying to be clear, trying to understand. So that's a perfect storm in a way, because things being aimed in my direction, and so that was manifesting challenges, of course. And then me seeking answers and wanting it straight away was also creating a bubble that had to pop ultimately. So it's like they've said, if you pray for the upliftment and awakening of the world, or for the world to be cleansed, if you give it a timeline, if the world cleansed itself tomorrow, what would happen?
Mm-hmm.
Absolute chaos. Like, it'd be earthquakes, everything. It'd be a massive lancing of chaos, and the earth would balance itself in no time.
Yeah.
So the quicker we want something, more chaos we potentially bring to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily that we aren't heard, it's because we are heard. And the fastest way through is through the fire. And that has been my experience. And in this intensity, there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. So, some semblance of understanding is what we must find amongst the chaos. And so it's looking for it's like one step. It's like you're going through a burning forest, and you got to find the trail that's not as burnt as the rest, and just, you can't look too far ahead because all you see is fire. So then you just look at the place where you get least burnt, and it's going to get hot.
Yeah.
And on that leads me back into like the curses or bad juju being thrown in your direction. It's a challenge, but the challenge in itself you can, and not to condone any of those things, but it's not the be all and it's not the be all and the end all. If something is fired in your direction, it's an opportunity. So the stuff that I felt in my direction, alongside my willingness and the putting a lot of energy into wanting to see clearly, if you can handle the journey, it speeds everything up. So you can turn whatever's thrown in your direction, good or bad.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to turn the good anyway, but the bad stuff, you can turn it into, you can discover things about yourself by seeing, through experience, how you handle sort of chaos or potential darkness around you. And then even that can reveal certain things, if you're aware enough and you're willing, things you need to work on or discover or understand, because understanding is the road to freedom. And as you understand yourself and aspects, you become more fearless, because negativity attaches through fear, and not just negativity, like also we're all energy beings. So even if it is a curse, and they say even with like voodoo and all that sort of things, it's about trying to find and latch onto weaknesses or insecurities within. And then it tries to, it's like doing a search and well, not search and destroy. Well, it's a searching for ways through a negative host in a way, to destroy the positive aspects, to bring rise to doubt within the being, and to heal and to be protected isn't about putting as many barriers around you as possible. It's about surrendering and becoming fearless. And that's a hard thing for most to get their head around, is if I surrender, I'm vulnerable. No. If you surrender through awareness, that's empowerment. It's not vulnerability. It's the opposite of what people think. And a lot of things we speak about is really opposing views to the norm, that when it's misunderstood, the view, it's potential things that are seen as a weakness is actually the way forward. Often that's the case.
Well, it's empowerment through detachment, isn't it? It's like the more detached you are, the more powerful you are.
Yeah, in a sense, but the trap here for some listening in is detachment is it's where it's the connection. So it can be easily misconstrued that detachment is, I don't really care, I feel numb, I'm neutral, I don't really care, just go and screw everyone sort of thing.
No.
That's sort of detachment, but not being connected at all. So, it's been said that there's nothing wrong with your preferences. It's the attachment to preferences that creates suffering, and that is how it is. So you
got to be connected without being attached.
Yes.
Yeah. Figure that one out.
Elementary, of course.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing you can be disconnected from, really. You can be close to something, but it's like in a dream. How can you be disconnected? How can you separate the dream? It's when you describe a dream, it's all one. It's the experience of the entire dream. So to talk about detachment for certain elements and to break apart the dream and split it here and there, and it's a misconception. And this is just another dream in a sense. This is because you're experiencing in both. You can have some pretty realistic dreams, but it's sort of all energies. Well, not saying just all, but it's energies converging and you're experiencing along the way. And to pick and choose what can impact you, yes and no to some degree. But if you fear something, you're putting up an imaginary wall from something that's already imaginary. And it's a hard thing to get your head around. But, you can't, if you build up a brick wall, it's there, but you still breathe the same air. Air still gets through. Certain things still get in. It's just having a wall in some ways it minimizes people's access to you, but it also minimizes what you have access to as well. So I believe, in my experience, you need boundaries, not walls. And the boundaries is where you sit in yourself. It's the point where if you cross the boundary, you lose yourself. And so if and when I mean lose yourself, it's lose your integrity. It's when you cross it, you're seeking when you cross that a particular boundary, you're seeking approval, or you're wanting something, or it's about staying or knowing where the point is, where if you go beyond a certain point, you lose yourself, which means that so you're either seeking something because you don't feel you're enough. That's pretty much it, really. It's just.
But I think we discussed it before. I think before, where we've said that neither of us sort of wanted to fit into any boxes. We didn't want to attach to anything that had a label or anything like that, because we both felt that you want to connect by disconnecting to it all. You don't want to attach yourself to anything, because then you become limited straight away. But you're limiting yourself, really.
It depends on what it is, because like when I went to India, became part of the Sacha lineage. And so that became, there's not everyone does that, of course. So it's not about necessarily belonging nowhere. It's belonging to a place or a group or wherever it is that can expand you. So becoming part of the Sacha lineage for me, and this is just for me, it might be different from someone else. It's like I can learn more here. I can connect more. I can discover things about myself. And it's so the group I was a part of was about expanding and discovering and tapping into unconditional love. And that's what I wanted.
But that group isn't really putting any restrictions on you. They're not confining you to a certain space.
Yeah, 100%. But it was still a group in a sense, or there was still like a belonging to a particular. So you're right. Like it's different from being part of a group with all these conditions and rules and regulations, where the groups that I enjoy, could be meditation group, could be anything. The groups that I'll enjoy is the ones that have like-minded people and that are looking to expand rather than expand consciousness and awareness, as opposed to controlling and not many groups will say they're limiting anyway. Most groups will feel like it's the idea is to expand. But if there's certain areas where you cannot explore, and depending on what it is, it might be for your safety to some degree. So that's where everyone's got to work out their own places, their own groups, their own friends, because everyone has their own group to some degree. But it's having like-minded friends and groups that will enable you to expand and discover. And I think having a group in some way will provide a sense of safety rather than doing it alone. And not even being attached. And this is where the attachment comes in. It's not even being attached to a group that is be all and end all, in a sense, where my philosophy is, like, if you want to do ceremonies, meditations, or you're into gemstones or crystals or whatever it is, use these things to enhance yourself.
Stepping stones.
Yeah, but try not to become dependent on any of these things. So use them, but learn to access the potential that these things bring out. Learn to access it within yourself.
Yeah.
So then, how do you do that? That's the question. Well, tap into how you feel and how you feel when you're wearing certain things, or tap into that feeling and appreciate it and enjoy it, and then try and become aware of those aspects within yourself and those feelings when you're not wearing certain things, crystals or whatever it is, So and this is where some people have gone to other teachers and say, they're on their best behavior, they're not being real. Sorry, they're not like this in general. They're on their best behavior when they're around, their teacher or their guru or whoever it is. And there's nothing really wrong with that, because at least on some level, they know that they need to change from how they are in general to how they are. And if they're actually making a conscious effort to change their persona to some degree, if they're on their best behavior while they're around certain people, then they, on some level, know their behavior needs to change, or improve in general. And it's that toing and froing that will ultimately, as they become aware, will help them grow. Because ultimately, that person that you are when you're with a teacher or someone that you care about is how you want to be within yourself at all times. That's the goal. I would imagine that's the goal, because and it might be hard in a sense if you're trying to fake or fool or pretend that you're a certain way just when you're around certain people. The idea in my books would be to know that you're that person and that's who you are, like, at all times. So if you feel you need to change, discover that you are the amazing being that you're trying to be and more. And awareness is the fastest way. It's the only way to really unravel the misconceptions you have about yourself, that you're not good enough, and start realizing that the person you pretend to be, that you are that and more. I think that's the key.
No, I was just thinking, when you were saying, I was looking here at the tree swaying, and I'm thinking you just got to go with the flow. And a good indicator of if things not working is that you become unhappy, or if you start suffering, and that's when you know that you're not going with the flow, you're resisting something, and something needs to change.
Yeah, but there's also another trap here potentially where you might be doing okay, you might be in a good state of mind, a good frame of mind, and like you might be in nature. Sadness, they start feeling sadness all of a sudden, and it doesn't mean that they're doing something wrong. It means that the walls are coming down potentially, and they're feeling sadness underlying. So one has to be careful in not falling into whatever they're feeling is what they deserve or how they are. It's not like that. So I feel it's just, and if it seems random, so I was going to say, if it feels like it's coming on random when you've been feeling good, it's only because on some level, I believe, because you're opening and your walls are coming down. So what do you do when that happens? Well, you try and nurture yourself some more, and that may bring up some more feelings of lack of worth or sadness or so. But just don't disconnect because you're feeling sad. Connect more. is my advice. Otherwise, every time there's a chance of lancing a wound, you're just putting another bandage over it, you're locking it in. So it's that, once again, it comes to the non-attachment and trying to unravel, trying to understand, and don't fear what you're feeling. Inquire, self-inquire. And I feel like for myself, this was a huge thing for me. And I feel a lot of people do this or have done this. If someone's projecting or being angry at them or someone's not happy around them, you lose yourself in another person's misery or anger or frustration or whatever it is, and you can't differentiate yourself from them. And when I had some of my deepest insight, because at the time I thought, well, before the insight, I thought it's my fault, it's me. And then I was able, certain questions popped up within me, and I was able to realize that it wasn't, I could distinguish and pull myself out of the situation and think, no, it's actually not my suffering. And the biggest thing for me was linking guilt with what the person's actions were. How would I feel if I did what they are doing? The answer arose in me straight away. It's like, if I did what they did, I'd be feeling guilty. So then the next question that arose was, this is in my book too, just saying. So the next question that arose was, if I was doing these things, if I was projecting outwardly these feelings and continuing to do so, and this guilt, I believe guilt is innate in all beings on some level. It's a question of whether you are aware of it or not. So this led to my next question. It's like, well, if they are continuing to project their anger and frustration onto me, then clearly they're not in touch with that guilt. It's like, well, so then the next question arose, which was, how much would I have to be suffering to not be aware of the guilt, which is innate in all? And they went, oh, they're suffering because of their own thinking, their own mind, their own guilt. Oh, it's got nothing to do with me. No, I may have been a trigger potentially. But knowing that them triggering is not because of me, it's because of their misunderstanding. And then because there's a lack of willingness on their part to look into that understanding, and one might say, how can you say that? How can you say there's misunderstanding and lack of willingness on their part? Maybe they've decided they want to see through this, but they're still projecting. So the fact that they're still ongoing and still aimed at my direction or aimed in my direction shows that they haven't worked through it yet. And even if I'm going to work on certain aspects within me, I'm not going to be attacking and reflecting at the same time. I'm going to have a break from attacking another. I'm going to do some stock taking, so to speak. I'm going to check within me with what's going on to see what I need to look into. And I've mentioned this before, when having a guru, that I didn't harbor or try and protect, so to speak, the misunderstandings and the pain. I did that on some levels, subconsciously, things I didn't know how to unravel within me. But I just knew that if I was suffering, I hadn't seen deeply enough yet. So if you're fighting in a battle, you're not going to ultimately controlling all the shots and you're attacking. You're not going to be reflecting. You might strategize while the fight's going on, but ultimately, if you're truly trying to seek a truce, you're not going to be doing that while your guns blazing. You're going to do that. You're going to stop. Hang on, truce. We're going to just reevaluate things here, because it's like, I'm not sure I even want to attack you. But if I'm still attacking, you can't. The insight you're gathering or trying to discover while you're attacking another is extremely limited. You have to take time to reflect and question your motives, your actions, what you're seeking, why you're seeking it, what the other person needs to change for your benefit. And that is insane anyway, for that to happen, in a sense that do they have the capacity to change?
Yeah.
And that means that's not just about, first thing is like, are they capable of understanding? And that comes down to how much have they worked through in their experience? How willing are they to work through that? Can they take accountability for their own words and their own actions? If the answer to any of these things is no, then you're better off just discovering and learning it yourself rather than projecting and forcing another to change, because to make your life happy, like, well, we have to show others how to change. And if we can become soft, if we want softness around us, we have to facilitate softness around us. So those, it's like, you're in a small fenced off area of deer everywhere, and they're pretty tentative. They're sort of fight or flight. If you're walking around banging some drums and making a noise, they're going to be scattering everywhere. But if you sit in that enclosed space, potentially meditating and being quiet, they may over a period get used to you and come up to you, and after a while you're not a threat. But if you're constantly making noise and running around and you're not tender around them and within yourself, they'll run from you the whole time. So it's important, if we want change around us, that we must facilitate that space. And even if we try and begin to facilitate a space of calmness, if you're used to being triggered and angry and you're trying to facilitate a space of calmness, look, even for yourself with no one around, it's going to be hell. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So if you can't do that within yourself, how can other people do it around you?
Yeah.
And some can, but these people that can do that, learn from them. Like, don't teach them, show them the way if you can't maintain a sense of peace within.
Yeah.
I think, it all starts within yourself, and you can't expect another to do what you can't do and be a certain way around you when you can't be that way yourself. That makes no sense to me. So learn to be patient with yourself first, and allow yourself time. Maybe create some boundaries and allow yourself time to heal, because the healing has to start with you first. And then if you start healing, then you will encourage others to actually even stop and take note to some degree, and they may notice a change within you. That may encourage them. But even if you start changing, one person wakes up, doesn't mean that everyone around them is going to. That's for sure. So it's about knowing and discovering what you can handle around you for your growth. That may mean that you need to distance yourself from someone for periods, or maybe for quite a while, or even for short periods. It's a hard one because we want others to grow as we grow, especially in relationships. Yeah, you're very lucky if that can happen. But, as long as there's some growth, as long as there's movement forward, that's the main thing, because no one's going to, it's hard to know, and no one's going to grow the same pace that you or I do, or anyone else does, So that's where it's great that you ask the questions like it, that people ask. They say, but they don't really understand it. And then, and then people go, and then that misunderstanding sets them up for failure.
Yeah.
I know for myself, certain things, a lot of things, and I pay attention to a lot of what people say, or a lot of things that's said out there that is so easily misunderstood.
Yeah.
And without fine tuning it, you just run in a direction that's not going to really serve you. And then people might think, I'm applying this understanding or what, the art of detachment or whatever it is, and it's not working. Well, because it's not really, it's like if people say, you accumulate experiences and you grow from there. Well, not necessarily. You don't know how to cipher through it all. You bury yourself. So, and if you accumulate too much experience without the tools of working through any experience, then you're creating a massive backpack and a massive weight a burden that you're carrying around with you, because you've got to have all these experiences, but no way of really processing them, because it's like, where do you start? If you're carrying a huge weight, where do you start when you're trying to work through it? That's the entrapment. So it's like, well, how about you work through as much as you can while you still accumulate experiences and enjoy life and doing what you're doing. But don't just put it there and store it. Work through it. So work through it with the understanding that where you store it is on the shelf where it belongs, rather than a shelf that's just cupboard that's locked away because you're not sure what to do with that experience itself.
Well, that's the thing with detachment. I think many people look at detachment as detachment from heart.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, they would, but I think they don't make the understanding or where detachment is a thing anyway. But they think the fact that they're not feeling in their heart, they think that they don't care. I don't care. I don't give a shit.
That's right.
So then it's like, I'm detached, so I'm doing it. It's like, no,
that's not. Right. No.
So yeah, it's making people aware of the difference. Where I was going to say, I remember on the spiritual path when teachers would say this, and just go to your heart. It's like, wow, what does that mean?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like,
yeah, okay, yeah.
It means nothing. Like from someone that was angry and didn't feel my heart all the time. But how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is it? What is it? Like what? And now I know obviously a number of things that you can do to get you in touch with that. But that saying, just go to your heart, that used to annoy the shit out of me. Like I'm sick of hearing that.
And now it's a favourite saying of yours.
I know. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. But at least, and maybe it's me not asking the follow-up question, because it's like spiritual circles. I don't want to ask that question. Seem like an idiot.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How do you do that?
But also, I think when you say to people that aren't connected, to say something like that, they get angry, and then I'm like, I am connected. Yeah, because I remember saying that to someone a while ago. I was like, well, I am. You're wrong. I am. It's like, okay. Okay, then.
Yeah, for sure. You're better than saying clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly, you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where now I feel that if I say that to, and I get, hopefully I don't say it in a way that, anyone can say that, but obviously we can elaborate during these chats and people ask questions potentially. But on a one-on-one, I can follow up and inquire and talk about nurturing and that sort of thing. So I don't feel it's foreign to say that in a sense. It's different on these chats, but it becomes familiar because that's the most direct way. Although I didn't understand it at the time, it's the most direct thing. Go to your heart. Softness is the way.
Yeah.
And they will often need understanding offered around those things, those phrases anyway. But it is absolutely how it is. Go to your heart.
Yeah.
But I think even though I was angry and didn't really know at the time, just contemplating, what does it mean? What does it mean? That in itself can sort of plant seeds and put water on them subtly, So, but yeah, I understand it can be frustrating to hear those things, because it was for me.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening in to Fireside Chat. Stay tuned to the next one.